Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Gavin Courtney.
And thank you for joining us this morning. It's a lovely Thursday morning.
Yep, it's pretty sunny outside here in the city.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're expecting for today. They said warmer as the days go by. We'll be checking in on our weather in just a bit to find out what we can expect, if there'll be any changes along the way. And before that, of course, we know that pretty much what everybody's talking about this morning. Well,
there we go.
Let's do the weather. All right, we got Crystal Rosales on the line. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today, Crystal?
I'm great, thank you.
All right, I love the sound of that. So it is already warm out, and I'm assuming that's what the rest of the day is going to be like?
Yeah, basically.
All right, you tell us what the forecast is.
All right, so the 24-hour forecast is for some cloudy spells with only isolated showers developing.
Okay, and or winds?
The winds will be from the east to northeast at 5 to 10 knots.
Any difficult conditions at sea that people need to be aware of?
The sea conditions will be light chop to choppy, so it should be okay for them.
All right. Well, let's talk about our high temperatures then. How warm is it going to be?
The highs today will be 82 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 88 inland, and 76 in the mountain pine ridge.
Mm-hmm. And tonight?
Tonight will be 77 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 70 inland, and 67 in the hills.
All right. And what about our extended forecast? Any changes in the next few days?
Well, extended is for generally fair conditions with only isolated showers developing Friday and Friday night.
All right. Very straightforward forecast for today. Thank you very much for that, Crystal.
You're welcome.
You have a great day today.
And you guys as well.
Okay. There you have it.
There you have it.
Sunny, a bit cloudy, maybe an isolated shower, if you're lucky.
Sounds pretty normal.
Yeah, that's right. All right, we're going to keep things moving for this morning and get into some motivation to get your day started, which means it's time for our eye opener. And our eye opener is taken from dailyom.com, and it goes like this. We always have the option to not participate in negativity or to find a way to create a positive direction instead. Sometimes we start out with the best intentions to think and speak only positive thoughts, but the people around us throw us off course. Not everyone fully understands the power our thoughts and words have, or even if they do, they may be stuck in old patterns of negativity. Much of our habitual communication takes the form of complaining and criticizing, and it can be hard to find a way into certain conversations without lapsing into those old habits. In the right company, you may even be able to directly acknowledge the fact that things have taken a negative turn, thus freeing yourself and others from the negative pull. A powerful way to free yourself from the negative pull is to enlist allies who are similarly minded. The power of two people working to promote the positive is exponentially greater than one person working on their own. As you and your allies work together to lift the energy around you, you will be amazed to see how quickly the positive pull begins to draw people into its orbit, freeing one mind after another from negativity into light.
It's a pretty significant message. I know that a lot of people could definitely, or I should say that it's interesting because I don't think a lot of people think of things from that perspective.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of what happens is that most of the time people get kind of caught up in the moment and what's going on, and they sort of feed off of whatever energy is going on, and they don't really take a step back to analyze what is the situation, what's the best way that I can be involved, and really if I'm contributing to the negative energy, or if I should, step back and remove myself completely, or redirect the energy or change the pace of things. I think a lot of people don't really think about it like that. So I think it's really interesting, and I like today's eye-opener for putting that perspective on it.
Yeah, I like the finding allies part, because what it acknowledges is that it's tough to do.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of negative energy around, and there are a lot of people who are in negative spaces. And sometimes you may do your best setting out to be Susie Sunshine, or at least to just be a bit more optimistic in terms of your approach to things than others. But it's so much easier to get on board with the negative people than to get negative people or energy on board with your positivity. So it's a struggle. And I really appreciate that it talks about maybe stepping away from people who are just adding more negativity to your life, and getting people who can help you to find your positives. And I know that sounds like something like a lot of mumbo jumbo. But it is possible. There's some people who are just able to make light of a situation when things get really hectic. There's some who one thing goes wrong and it's like a complaint cycle. There's some who just are able to come above it and at least find some calm in all of that. And it's being able to pick the right people that you need around you, especially if you know where you are at a present time. If you are more prone to that negativity, you definitely need to find the positive energy in the people who are a bit lighter, I should say.
Yeah, and what it also got me thinking about was that a lot of people also always think that if they're talking about negative energy around other people, most people might automatically think about, what it's like a fight or some sort of like a real contentious situation. And it doesn't even have to be that. A negative energy can be something that just kind of brings you down or throws you off course, or makes you feel like a bit maybe less than you, or just holding you back from maybe achieving some of the things that you could do. And it reminded me of this whole concept of energy vampires, people who just kind of drain the energy and the positive, the positive energy, and even the light out of the room for you. And what it takes a lot to actually recognize that that's happening, because it happens. You have so much like codependent relationships, or let's say toxic relationships as well. And so it's really hard to take a step back and recognize what's happening, and then even worse, to do the thing to remove yourself, or to change, or to cause the shift that is really needed for you to take care of yourself and to progress.
Yeah, I think as much as there's some people who are sparks of positivity as well, you do have to recognize that you have some that are just like natural downers. They can be energy vampires, or it could be worse. They can be like, the person that spews all the negativity, and they draw people to themselves as well. So, you got to pay attention to what you're attracting around you, what you're surrounding yourself with, and choose wisely, because there is a lot of negative things happening. There's a lot to complain about, but it doesn't really solve problems now, does it? So sometimes the positive people aren't the people who are saying, oh, let's ignore the problems, but they're the people who are working towards a solution rather than just sitting around and complaining about it. Yeah.
And also you have to recognize that sometimes trying to address that situation or trying to change the negative energy can also be in and of itself. Like, let's say, especially if it's things that go on over a long period of time. Like if, especially a lot of people who do have that positive, that kind of fix-it attitude, they a lot of time try to change people or situations when it really can't happen. So I think it really does take a lot of analysis, both of the situation and of yourself, because no matter how good your intentions might be, sometimes there's just no way you can change some situations or some people. So I think that what's important is really taking care of yourself and putting yourself first, especially if it's a situation that's really bringing you down personally,
Yeah.
or affecting your health, because you know that mental or things kind of affect your physical health as well.
Yeah.
So it's really great. I like this sort of self-preservation and
And we got to remember it.
Self-consciousness
Yeah,
also.
we got to remember it, because that there are a lot of hours in the day you're interacting with different people, and you have to hold on to the things that you can control, and you can control the type of energy you choose to be around or what you want to participate in, especially.
Absolutely.
Right, so that's a great eye-opener for today. I actually think it's quite fitting in terms of looking at what's happening globally. We know that everyone is very concerned about the new coronavirus outbreak, which has now been deemed a pandemic by the World Health Organization, which means it's spreading globally. And we in Belize, of course, have had no confirmed cases as yet. Every single day I get a text message from somebody saying, oh, they found a case here, they found a case there. I keep on saying, I urge people to look for reliable sources, not just because you got a WhatsApp message means it's true, or because you saw it on Facebook or somebody posted it somewhere that it's true. Do your own verification. That's so important, because imagine the energy, you're worried about this disease, and every day you're thinking, oh, it's here, and then it's not. It's here, and then it's not. Just the energy that it takes buying into this misinformation. It can have a toll on you as well. But yesterday we did some hand washing demonstrations. I learned how to use hand sanitizer properly. Didn't know that one.
Yep.
And we just keep on encouraging people to find information that will help you. Look for reliable sources for your information. Yesterday, the Ministry of Health did a live question and answer segment on Facebook. So that's a great opportunity for you to look out for, to be able to get your questions directly to the Ministry of Health, or concerns as well. But yes, we must monitor, but we can't lose sight of the fact that there's a lot of personal responsibility here. And that is good hygiene, proper cough and sneezing etiquette, not touching your face, cleaning your surfaces, staying home if you're sick, even if it's a flu. Just stay home until you're better, and be sure as well to keep your distance from people. You need to start practicing your elbow greetings. Have you started yet?
Oh yeah, for sure. And then I've also seen people do with their
the foot
feet.
one, yeah. That requires balance, though. I don't try that one with heels on.
It's like the kid on play dance.
So yeah, but we're making joke of it. Start teaching your kids; they'll have fun with it. Teach them a kick hello, or not kick, but a foot hello or an elbow hello. They're also very prone to spreading germs. Reinforce hand washing. It's a very important time for us to take on our part as well, as we keep on looking at the preparations that are being taken by government.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So it's time for some morning tea, actually.
Yeah, I know. So we're looking at this morning a viral sort of video that's been going on Facebook, which I'm not sure if we're going to show it, but we've...
Yeah, I think we're going to show it. Do we have the video? Okay, so I don't know. Yeah, we're talking about the morning tea. So we're supposed to show a video this morning. Yeah. Okay, so
the video is basically about we're talking about this little girl who's really talking about beauty standards.
Okay, they have it.
Oh, okay, there we go. So we can take a look.
Say that. You are so pretty. When you look at yourself, you supposed to say, I'm so pretty. You are so pretty. Do you hear me? You got the prettiest little dimples. You are too cute. No, you gonna make me cry. You're not ugly. Baby girl. Oh my God, Ariana.
Heartbreaking. Yeah, what are your thoughts? Let's get the male version first?
Oh no, I mean, I thought, it was like a heartbreaking video. I definitely sympathize with the little girl. I can't, one of the things that, or the main thing I should say that stood out is that from such a young age you can start internalizing such, let's kind of go back to the eye-opener, negative energy, and that can be directed towards you. And I can only imagine that, of course, she didn't get that idea herself. That it must have been somebody, or maybe it could have been another child, or even an adult, because some people can be terrible.
Yeah.
Or that put this idea into this little girl's head. I think she's 4 years old, that she was ugly, and the reaction that she gave when she was told that she was beautiful and she started crying just shows you that it was something that was really already deeply felt and internalized. Yeah. So really, my heart broke for the little girl, and I'm happy at least that she has somebody around her to encourage her and to tell her that she is beautiful, because in those moments where, especially a moment of vulnerability, it's super important to have that support. And I think that at the end of the day, that's what family is all about, and so she's lucky that she does have that support system. I mean, especially since you asked me for the male perspective, we know that women get judged a lot harsher for their appearance, and we can see that it starts already at age 4. That sort of baggage is being taken on, and it's felt so deeply. Yeah. So it's really heartbreaking to see a video like that. I don't know. What's your reaction?
Yeah, no, it's so sad. I mean, you could hear her pain, and it's an emotional pain. Just a 4-year-old calling themselves ugly, or somehow something along the way made her feel that she wasn't living up to a standard that she should, and that's just sad. For me, I think this could be an all-day conversation, but I think you're looking at several things. You're looking at impossible beauty standards from even a young age, but I want to take it to a more controllable factor. We gotta stop focusing on telling even little girls that they're pretty or beautiful. That's not their worth. Their worth is not driven by what they look like. We have to meet children, and we have to tell them about the characteristics that they're building, and applaud them for things along those lines. You can tell them of how smart they are, how kind they are, how mannerly they are. You can tell them about how brave they are. These are things that they can work on and build on. But when you focus from even a very young age on you look pretty, you look like a princess, your hair looks perfect. These are things that they then become, because children naturally are looking towards validation. They want you to like what it is that they're presenting. And if you put them in that box from such a young age, I mean, it really is a part of what we as women grew up with and you struggle with. So we got to change the course of things. We know better now. And I think that part of it really boils down to the amount of emphasis that we put on just how, especially a little girl looks. We do call boys handsome, don't get me wrong. They're also subjected to it, but we must rethink it.
Yeah, and I think that what has to happen, in terms of self-esteem and building that in younger children, is that even if you're going to focus on looks, the message has to be that you should be happy the way you are.
Yeah.
Look at because that's beyond your control in large part. I mean, especially for a child.
Yeah.
So if you have to say that you're healthy,
yeah.
you can run around,
yeah.
You have hair that's growing, you're doing, you're everything
yeah.
about you is the way it's supposed to be. So that should be the starting place and the start of the confidence building.
And it's their value system that you're forming.
Exactly.
So if you're going to base their value system on looks, I mean, what are you setting them up for the future? But focus the value on the things that are really going to help them to be more productive as they get older, and recognizing the things that we do need right now. So like I said, let's and we're all guilty. It's kind of just like robotic. But we must hold ourselves accountable to it and just try to check ourselves and change our language. It can start from a very young age in what we tell children, and you can focus on things other than their physical appearance.
No, for sure, I
So
agree.
that's what I thought watching that video. Let us know what you think. Of course, you can shed some light by discussing it on Facebook. You can comment on our live stream on Facebook right now, or send us a message on Instagram. We just want to hear your thoughts, and of course our morning teas, just some conversation starters for today. We got to get moving into our show though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, for our first conversation, we are going to be getting an update from the Belize Peace Movement on the redistricting case, which is currently before the Chief Justice in the Supreme Court. So we are going to be hearing from them where we are now.
All right, and the second part of our show, we're going to be joined by Beltrade, and they are actually calling for proposals. They're looking at some investment opportunities, and so we're going to get all the details about that in the second part of our show.
And then for our last conversation, we are going to be speaking to the Light and Peace Basketball Foundation, and they're going to tell us all about their preparations for the upcoming Drew Joyce Classic and the female tournament. So that's going to be super interesting.
All right, so that's our lineup for this morning. We're going to take a break, but before we do
have a birthday shout out. So from all of us here at Open Your Eyes on Channel 5, we are wishing a very happy birthday to Debbie Norales. So we hope you have a great day. Also, on a personal note, it's my grandma's birthday.
Yay!
So I'd like to wish her a very
You
happy
have to sing.
birthday too. I know.
yeah.
Right? So we hope you guys, we hope both you, Debbie and Grandy, have very happy birthdays and many, many, many more.
All right, and with that, we're going to go ahead and take that break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about redistricting in Belize, what the case is about, what it means, and just the point of view, especially from the Belize Peace Movement. So that's coming up after the break.
The Belize Bank introduces its mortgage
And we are back. Joining us for our first conversation this morning, we are speaking to the Belize Peace Movement, and we are getting an update on the redistricting case, which is currently before the Supreme Court. And joining us for this conversation are Paul Morgan from the Belize Peace Movement and the Attorney at Law for the movement, Arthur Saldivar. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
morning.
Good morning, Marlene. Good morning. Pleasure as well, definitely.
So perhaps we can start by perhaps refreshing some memories, and perhaps you can explain to our viewers in a nutshell what the essence of this case is about.
Okay, well, if you look at where we are right now, everybody is talking about national development. And without understanding that there is a process in this whole endeavor, then we will miss the whole matter of redistricting or redivisioning. On the screen here, the concept is laid out. We start with fair representation. Without fair representation, there can be no national development. Without fair representation, we cannot have national unity. National unity brings us productivity as a nation. When we're producing, then our families can be reared. When our families are reared properly, then we can have social justice, which in that case, families take care of families, and then we don't need government so much to be dictating what we do. So I believe that the concept of the redivisioning starts there. Fair representation is a wide area, and so the redistricting issue is only one of them. In speaking about fair representation, you have to define what is fair and what is representation, because we like to, in Belize, we like to throw words that nebulous. So on the screen again, is this being shown on okay, on the screen again, you'll see what we mean by fair, so that we don't have an argument, and what we mean by representation. Fair is where equitable rules apply, and the equitable rules are found in the constitution of the country. Okay, so representation, of course, is in the best interest, acting in the best interest of those who are represented. And what is critical is that we must be acting with the will of the represented. Okay, give me the next slide. So, next slide. Okay, good. We need to switch a little bit to voters, the equity in the voter list, in what we're doing here in representation. Here's a timeline. This is critical. In 1981, our constitution provided that each constituency had to have between 2,000 and 3,000 voters.
Yes.
Now, that is a fixed number, absolute number, but it actually set a standard of 20%. If you do the math, if we look at the math here, 20% of the mean, up and down from the mean. In 1981, if we skip ahead, we'll see that the constituencies or the constitution was changed in 1981. From 2,000 to 3,000, they absolutely removed the numbers. And so we had a standard left. The standard remained 20% up or down the mean.
So let me just interject here, because I wanna keep it conversational and to understand some of the information that you're putting out.
Yes.
So the basis of the redistricting case, and this is the crucial point, is being able to fulfill what is set out in our constitution.
That's correct. Yes.
We had spoken about re-registration and redistricting together. And it's very important for us to be able to communicate to the audience that when that conversation came up, the first point was that before you touch redistricting, you must tackle re-registration, which is also allowed for or stipulated in our laws. We completed that process. but now there's been no conversation about redistricting, and that is the reason, I'm assuming, why you have now taken it to the courts.
Correct. Right.
Following sending other mediums of communication.
Well, we must appreciate that it took about 20 years to get to re-registration.
Which is supposed to happen how often?
Every 10 years. Now, the thing about it is that our population is fluid.
Yes.
We have immigration, and a large number of immigrants coming almost every day. These persons, once they stay for the requisite period, 10 years, become citizens, or that they're qualified to become citizens. And when they do, it impacts on the voter eligibility and the voter rolls. So when we have these people coming on and being added to our voter rolls, apart from people naturally reaching the age of 18, there will be changes.
Yes.
And given what's taken place in Belize City in particular, we find that more citizens are leaving Belize City than are coming into Belize City. The suburbs have been established. Ladyville, Sandhill, Hattieville, Mile 8. There are so many former Belize City residents living in these areas now.
Yes.
That the Belize City constituencies have become much smaller than they once were. Now, all these are the dynamics that have brought us to this point where there's this great disparity in rural constituencies as opposed to urban constituencies. It goes back to the concept of fairness. Because once the re-registration is done, that is where the public can have an appreciation for what are the real hard figures in terms of eligible voters in the various constituencies.
Now be clear to me what the law says about how the divisions should be created. What is the fair, because you went through, I think, a very important exercise of saying at one point there was a number given, 2,000 to 3,000. That's no longer there as of 1988. But what is allowed for equal representation?
Well, what the Constitution requires is that the constituencies be as equal as possible.
Okay.
Which, given what the original intent of the framers of the Constitution laid out in 1981, is that there should not be a variance of more than 20% up or down.
Okay.
So you're talking about, as it related to the 2,000 to 3,000 hard figure that was a part of the original Constitution, that you could have 500 votes up, which would be between 2,500 to 3,000, or between 2,500 to 2,000 on the low end. When you take that out, what remains is the 20% variant. So let's say the population has grown so much that the average would be 4,000 or 5,000. Then the 20% would be calculated against the 4,000 or the 5,000, as opposed to when it was originally conceived at 2,000 persons or 3,000 persons.
So with a changing population, the number per division may change. But what we do have stipulated is the number of representatives that should be allowed for.
Correct. 31.
Yes, 31.
Okay.
Which means then...
So you always have a number to work with once you divide the population by 31.
Correct.
Right. And it's within those parameters that the equality can be reached. Since there is a cap in terms of the number of representatives in the House.
And it can be less.
It
can be less, but it cannot be more than 31. But if you want to keep it at 31, it would mean then that some of the smaller constituencies would have to be amalgamated or consolidated, and the bigger constituencies cut down. That would allow for the equity, the equality to be reached, which would make it fair. Because as it stands right now, from what we are looking at, the fourth-judge voter is the most powerful voter in the country. Remember?
Explain that further.
I was about, that was exactly where I was going right now.
Let me...
It is true, but I want you to explain it.
If you go to slide number 12, skip to slide number 12, and that explains it, the comparison of vote value among constituencies. Very important, and you know, we're looking at it. If you look at the graph, you will see that on the far right, Stan Creek West has a vote value of, let's say, 1. Because they're the largest constituency. On the far left, you will see Fort George with a vote value of almost 5.5. So what it means is that for every Stan Creek West voter, for George voter, there would be five
yeah.
Stan Creek West voters to make up, and important, their ability to select representatives that who will control the budget of the country.
So, and it even goes beyond that. This chart really does display something I think that it has always been a concern, and that is the Belize City-centric dynamic. Right. If we look on the left, where I am, you're looking at all Belize City areas that have higher voting value. Fort George, Albert, Mesa, Queen Square, Pickstock, Freetown, Caribbean Shores, Collet, Lake Independence, and then we hit the first rural. All of these persons have greater representation because their divisions are smaller rather than your Stan Creek West, for example.
What it means in real terms as well, Marlene, is that these persons command and more likely would get a disproportionate amount of the resources of the nation as it relates to budget allocation for constituencies. Now, which is patently unfair when you consider that the Stan Creek district, by and large, in terms of its GDP contribution, far outpaces the Belize district and Belize City, which really doesn't produce much, but consumes quite a bit. So when you find that the farmers in the south are facing problems in terms of citrus greening and problems with banana and what have you, and they're not getting the budgetary support, it makes it difficult, and it basically puts the country in a very perilous economic position, because you're basically spending most of your resources on the unproductive as opposed to the productive.
And well, I think a question that's in everybody's mind is, you know, given that this is such an important constitutional requirement, how is it that we got here, where, you know, it seems to have been a failure of successive governments to carry out what was required, that now we're forced to actually go to the courts?
Well, failure is relative. See, for some it's quite a success because it has allowed them to maintain power. And where the interest of the politician is power and power alone, this is the ideal situation.
We got here because the political directorate of Belize have seen it as an inconvenience to their efforts to do this, to follow the Constitution.
Let me just step back a bit. There have been, over the past, some divisions that have been reconstituted with time. The most recent, I'm trying to remember the exact date, but I know there was some work done in Belize City, some adjustments made in Belize City and in some of the rural areas, right?
Yes.
The last time that happened was when?
I believe between 1989 and 1993, we had the creation of Belize Rural Central.
Yes.
We had...
Belmopan was in 2000. So that was the last of it.
Okay. So it's not that it can't be done. We've done it in the past, but doing a mass exercise is what has not taken place, and that's what you're advocating for in the courts.
It has not been done. One or two constituencies being adjusted to allow for persons to run or to create, in terms of Belmopan, a new constituency out of a municipality is not a redivisioning as intended by the Constitution. What the Constitution required and requires is that there is a general and comprehensive analysis of the voter distribution across the country. And then to have the process where those numbers are made equal across the board. Not because, you know, Mr. X, who is a long-standing party supporter with deep pockets, want to run in a particular area, we want to find a way to accommodate him. That's what's been done in the past. That's not what we are seeking to do here now.
You're looking to equal out the numbers, as simply put as possible, as equal as they can possibly be. Now, I want to come back to something, because you used the example of perhaps budget allocation. I feel that voters in this country don't necessarily recognize our power and what it means to have a representative in the House. But there's one example that we can use, and that would be the Christmas cheer program. So we're going to work on the assumption that this is done right. Let's start there. That there's a program where there's some additional money being given out for a specific period of time, which in its own self has its concerns. But in this situation, let's also assume that it wasn't divided along political lines, because unfortunately that's what happens. UDP, or the ruling administration, they get a larger amount than those of the opposition, although they're all members of the House of Representatives. But let's go back to that example. Had it all been equal, a Stan Creek West representative would have to share whatever sum of money they receive with 7,000 plus people, versus a Fort George, Albert, or Queen Square, which would share it with far less. So naturally you are seeing where if I in a Stan Creek West, I'll get chump change compared to the dollars that will be collected in these smaller constituencies.
Well, in another analogy, you could look at the ham and the turkey.
Yeah.
In Stan Creek West, where you have upwards of 7,000, 8,000 voters, the representative cannot give a whole ham or a whole turkey. Someone will be getting a leg, somebody a wing, and you'll be probably getting 1/9 or 1/8 of a ham per family.
Just because that's what's allocated for your mass numbers versus the smaller
Whereas
numbers.
in Fort George, some people may be walking home with 2-3 turkey. Is it?
But you know what's interesting when you look at the numbers? Our past 2 prime ministers represent some of the smallest constituencies.
Yes.
That's what it is,
You're talking about less people having to vote in former Prime Minister Fort George and Prime Minister Dean Barrow. They're on the smaller end of the spectrum. They require less votes to get in office.
Correct. And that is a great element of control. You see, when you have 1,005 or less persons in a constituency, I always look at what is the least number needed to carry the day. So 50%.
Yes.
Right? 50% of 1,500 will simply bring us to about 750 people. Now, for a politician who is financially booted, it's an ease for them. $70,000 wins an election. Let's say if they're talking about the money politics that is practiced in Belize now, sadly, and the vote being, let's say at an average of $100 a vote, 70,000. Now the man in Stan Creek West, he is not a lawyer. He does not have a big business, but he needs finances. The finances will come from the extra that those in the city have to assist with. So you have to do what we tell you to do, not what your people require of you. Because with the amount of population that you have, it's easy for us to inspire somebody else who can get just as much votes as you will to overthrow you. So there is no representation then, because you're held hostage by the numbers that you cannot control because you don't have the resources to address it. So when we do this redivisioning, we are looking to mitigate and lessen the influence of money in our politics and bring issues to the forefront so that people can be properly represented as opposed to being bought.
I mean, from a layman's perspective, it also means that some representatives have to work harder to get their votes than others, because because you're not even looking at the geography as to the space and how far spread out these voters are in one area versus the other. But let's go back to the critical issue here. It's defined in our laws. Whether or not anybody's watching and think it makes sense or doesn't make sense, the law says it should happen. The other issue is that I think there's fair enough acknowledgement from both mass political parties, from the opposition and from the ruling administration, that yes, it's time, we should have done this, we need to do it. But the crux of the matter is whether or not it can be done before the next election.
It can.
Well, certainly it can. Yeah, certainly it can. I mean, the technology that of the past and the technology we have now, it's like night and day. This is just a book exercise, basically. It's not going to take more than maybe a month, the maximum, to do
Why
this.
do you call it a book exercise? Explain.
Well,
that.
because it's redrawing by more by
It's a drawing of lines.
It's drawing graphs.
Shifting boundaries.
It's not shifting people. It's important because a young man at UB asked me yesterday, well, will people have to relocate? And that shocked me because I said, oh, okay, it might be that people are thinking this is going to be difficult because you're going to have to physically move people.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's a book exercise.
And it's based
Yeah.
on simple arithmetic.
Yeah,
at the end of
Exactly.
the
Right.
day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You will take a.
So is my street will either be one year or the next?
Well,
Yes, and you'll just be notified.
Here's the crux of the matter. We have heard about the padded voters list, right? And people registering in these empty lots. No, that's not on us. That's on the politicians who have been practicing that. Now, when you draw the line based on where people are said to be registered,
Yeah.
you may find that maybe they are not there really. Or maybe the numbers, physical numbers, are not reflected because of the corruption in the system that has been ongoing. And even with the re-registration, which was supposed to have cleaned the list, they know what they've been doing.
Yeah.
And this is the fear. The fear is that the political...
That's what you're assuming the fear is from the political parties.
Right.
Yeah.
The fear is that the corrupt practices will be borne out.
Well,
Yeah.
So the lines will be drawn, and some people who have padded their list will lose access to their voters.
I do have one perspective on this because we have interviewed the leader of the opposition. I gotta say we have not been able to interview someone from the current administration on this issue. But their argument is that the relationships have been built already and we're in an election year. And to have to learn and develop a relationship with new families with so little time before the next election is going to be very challenging. And I'd imagine, I mean, let's be honest about this. These divisions have been this way for a long time. Many families have their alignments. Some are independent voters. And so the relationship that's been built between a politician and their voters in their constituency, they don't want to let go of that. That's a security that they have. There's no political will to want to change that.
Yeah, can I say something about that? This is very important, that the Constitution of Belize was not written for the convenience of politicians and political parties. It was written for us to relate in a fair manner. And that's why we defined fair when we started. Fair is equitable rules, and the equitable rules are found in the Constitution. So when the politician tells me that he has established relationships with his constituencies, that's fine and good. But it bridges the very right of those people who he is establishing his relations with.
You see, we are a constitutional democracy. Or at least that's what the founders intended us to be. We did not come into being like the English democracy, where there was a Magna Carta that limited the powers of the monarch, and by virtue of that you have the dignified and the efficient in terms of the vision of their constitution. We have the efficient. The dignified is in England and represented by a figurehead Governor General here. But we have the efficient, which is strict constitutional supremacy. Not any parliamentary supremacy, constitutional supremacy. In that regard, nothing that is mandatory in the Constitution can be avoided and still be maintained and still allow us to maintain our status as a constitutional democracy. So we are either a constitutional democracy or we are not. And if we are not, what are we?
Well,
A tyranny?
which is why the argument, I think, has not been that it shouldn't happen. I don't. Is that what you're hearing in court? It's not that it shouldn't happen. It's just not now.
Well,
And if not, no when.
It has to happen now. You see, the reason why it has to happen now is because you can have all these infractions and unconstitutional things occur. in the absence of challenge. But once it's brought to light, it has to be addressed. Because the Constitution, for this to be made right, Mr. Barrow would have to go back to the House like he's doing with his Validation Act. But it would require a 3/4 majority to change the Constitution, which he cannot get. So this is something that cannot be avoided. It has to be dealt with.
A critical issue in that is within our laws, as the attorney will say better, if there is no complaint, there is no crime. So, so here we are complaining, and therefore it is imminent now that we must do it. It is because we complain. If there are so many constitutional violations going on as we speak, but there is no complaint, there is no crime.
All right, so let's look at this from a logical perspective. You keep on saying that this is a book exercise, but what about the confusion that it will cause to voters in entering into an election by the end of the year? Maybe I've always been a Freetown, yeah. And now I'm going to be, or maybe I've always been a Fort George person, and now I'm going to be amalgamated with another area. I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know my representatives, you know, from the perspective of the voters. Because you know this is a part of the argument being put forward.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to the same places you've always gone to. Your polling stations will remain the same. For example, if you're voting at Ebenezer School, for example, that will still be the polling station you go to. It may just be that instead of being in the division that it was originally, the name will change.
Yeah.
That's all. And it has been done. So nobody will be required to go somewhere remote, unknown.
So there's no actual physical movement that would be required in this exercise?
No physical movement.
What may happen is that there will be new polling booths created, stations, closer to where you live, which will make it easier for you to access and be a part. We have seen voter numbers fall in Belize in successive elections because people, for many reasons, have become apathetic. But part of the reason has been that in remote areas, it's been difficult for the voter to get to the polling booths. What this would do is bring the process closer, make it more accessible. And that is what we need in a democracy. If the people are to rule, which is what democracy portends, then they must be given every opportunity to participate.
So you've done the math based on the 2019 re-registration exercise and the 31 representatives. What's the ideal number per division that we're looking at?
5,200.
5,200 per division.
Per division.
How many divisions are currently around over that number?
Well, if we
or
look
under that number, let me see.
If we look at the deviation from the average, slide number 11, that will show us exactly where the constituencies are regarding that, right?
So all of these, this is based on the exercise done last year, re-registration, your numbers are of October 2019. These constituencies from, what is it?
Orange
Walk Central to Stan Creek are over what the ideal number should be. And the others on the other side are less than what the number should be.
Yes. That is what it is.
And when you look at what's over the 5,000 number that you're giving, they're mostly rural areas.
Right. 70% of the constituencies are over the 5,000 threshold.
And well, since we don't have that much time left, perhaps you can sort of give our viewers an update as to what is the current status of the court proceedings. Where are we and what can we expect in the upcoming weeks?
Okay. What we have going on right now is that tomorrow there will be the application made by the interested party to have experts be brought in to assist the court in understanding and appreciating what the Constitution requires and how it can be done. Once that is done, then we go into the phase for case management orders to be given, when disclosure, standard and specific, will be mandated and witness statements will be prepared. So we're actually looking to go into the meat of the matter quite shortly.
Now you're seeking several things. One, you want a declaration that the divisions aren't fair.
Yes.
Right? Tell us the other things that you are seeking. What do you want from the court?
Well, we want the court to to establish that what is being done is unconstitutional. That's the the most important aspect.
Okay.
Because once that is established, then everything else follows.
Okay.
Once it's declared unconstitutional, then there need to be orders to have the election boundaries do what is constitutional required to do, which is to put forward the proposals to Parliament, which is a very simple thing. For them to have this case just go away, all they really need to do is make the proposition and then put it into the hands of Parliament to say whether or not they will convene a special meeting of the House to debate the issue and comply. Now, if we should get there, that the proposals are made, the question will be, can Parliament ignore the proposition and seek to have an election be held with the present composition of the constituencies? The answer would be no. Hence the reason there's an injunction also being asked for. Because the injunction is basically seeking to stop Parliament from encouraging an unconstitutional act. So we want Parliament, who is supposed to be in the business of protecting and safeguarding the Constitution, to do what they are elected to do: safeguard and protect the Constitution. Do the right thing. Instruct election and boundaries to carry out the exercise based on the proposition to redivision. So, one is simple: to get this case out, election and boundaries, make the proposition to Parliament, and two, Parliament follows up and get the thing done.
All right. And as we said, it's before the court, so we don't know what's going to happen. We're only getting some clarity as to the case that you're bringing forward. Thank you very much for coming in and explaining. It sounds sometimes very complex, but when you just look at it for the simplicity of the numbers and fairness, it becomes a lot easier for people to understand. So thank you.
Thank
for
you very
coming in.
much too. Yeah, thank you.
We are going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by representatives from Beltrade. Please stay tuned.
$65
On January 15, 2020, the
And we're back and we're moving into our second conversation for today. We're joined by the manager of Belize Invest Generation Unit. We have Hero Balani with us, and he's going to be telling us about an upcoming expo and the potential for investments that may come from it as well. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Marlene. Good morning, Gavin. Thank you for having us as well. Yes.
All right. Well, let's just start off with demystifying this unit, the Belize Invest Generation Unit.
Right. So it may sound like a different type of unit in itself, but essentially at Beltrade, we have 4 mandates, right? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes you hear of the Small Business Development Center, which is our MSME development unit. And then we have our Export Belize unit. Mm-hmm. So they try to help MSMEs to reach at a certain level where they are ready to start exporting. So that in itself takes a process. And then in 2014, we had instituted our Belize Training and Employment Center that does different types of trainings nationally. So based on the industry demands, we would roll out different trainings, right? But Belize Invest has been one of the units that under Beltrade has existed since its inception. Yeah. Back in 1997, as you know, Beltrade was previously called TIPS. So it was called a Trade and Investment Promotion Service. And then it evolved into Beltrade in 2000. But essentially, Belize Invest, our mandate is to promote Belize for investments. So it's how do we generate new investments, hence the word generation unit. Okay. So my unit is tasked to look at business development. We try to look at ways in which we could help local investors, but also ways in which we can attract foreign investors to participate with local investors. And that's the gist of our unit.
So it's more external than internal. It's more getting people to have an interest in Belize and in Belizean businesses?
It's both. It's both, because a part of Belize Invest is also the administration of investment incentives. Yeah. So under Belize Invest, you have a generation unit and an aftercare unit. Okay. So when we generate an investment, let's call it that, you would walk into Beltrade, you would say, okay, I want to invest in a 5-star hotel in San Pedro. And then we would give you the necessary steps, the guidance, how to apply for a hotel license, how to get your DOE clearance from the Department of Environment. And then we go from there. But once you've reached a point where you're saying, okay, I would like an incentive from the government in terms of tax incentives, then we take you to our aftercare unit where they help you to apply for that government incentive. So that's the segmentation. But we work with local and foreign investors, both.
And is there, let's talk about local investment and the potential there.
So there's quite a bit, actually. What we've seen is a good mix. I would say it's almost split down evenly, 50-50, in terms of our mandate to attract both local and foreign investment. But we attract investments in all of the 6 priority sectors. So that includes tourism and leisure, that anything dealing with tourism. We have agribusiness and agro-processing. And then we look at the offshore outsourcing services sector. So that's the BPO industry, the call centers. And then we have sustainable energy. we have fisheries and aquaculture, and light manufacturing. So those 6 areas are where we can work with investors. So we help them put together, whether it be a business plan, help them go through. But the incentive process is where we focus the business plan on, how to apply for a fiscal incentive. Right?
And are you looking at investment in all levels or all scales of business from small to big?
Yes, all scales. And this is the reason why we see there's a lot more potential in Belize for us to look at partnerships, look at better partnering our local investors that are probably small scale with those large scale, typically termed foreign direct investment or FDI. And we try to look at ways in which we can partner. And globally, we've seen a shift in that trend where investors are no longer coming to a country to just say, well, I want to invest in a greenfield venture, just a complete open operation, but they would like to partner. And that's a part of why we're having this initiative.
And that's why I asked you how much of your focus is external, because there are 2 things. It's, let's say I'm a foreigner who wants to invest in Belize. I can come into Belize and say, okay, I want to set up something. I want to create something. And you can help me do that. But I can also look for someone who's already started and try to figure out how we can grow this business together. So what becomes essential then is that the small businesses or even medium businesses in Belize are marketable enough or have perhaps everything in order that when I come and I'm interested, I can look at your business and see the viability of it. How are we doing in terms of building that type of marketability for more businesses locally?
Right. And so that's, I would say that's twofold, because one, as a business, I have to be willing to market myself to investors, meaning that let's say I'm a small business in Belize, let's say whether it be a large like Marie Sharp or someone like a small maybe chocolate producer or something, I would have to be willing to have investors sit at the table with me and to share my financials, my business plan, maybe share my secret recipe that only my grandma knows or you know, something like that. And basically that's where we have to kind of culturally change as well and look at that, because other countries have looked at raising capital through public offerings of their companies. Once they reach a certain stage in a startup, they go public. You always hear about companies going public and getting investors. So that's the first. And I think the second is, like you said, conceptualizing what exactly it is that you want the investors to help you in. So the first is the willingness, and the second is, well, what is it that I can help you with to help you grow? Sometimes we have to sit and help companies brainstorm that, actually. But some know exactly what they want to do. For example, we have 12 projects in the pipeline in the portfolio at this time. And we're looking to increase that. But from those 12, I would say one of them is a farm, a cacao farm in southern Belize. And they're saying, you know, I have all this farm already going, but I would like to expand it, and I want some equity investment to come with me at the table. So I'm willing to give up a 25% equity stake in my company. So see, that's a good example. And then another, maybe another case I could cite is if I have, let's say, land that isn't doing anything, and I say, well, you know, I'm willing to co-invest or to partner with someone, whether they be local or whether they be foreign. But I realize, you know, my land is off the coast of Placencia, and this has good tourism potential. So it's conceptualizing that kind of case of what could be put there. We had a case that was successfully matched under Belize Invest and the Beltrade's initiative with the portfolio, is with Digi, well, formerly BTL, but I was about to say BTL, but with Digi actually, because what they did in terms of business development is invested in their own call center facility in Orange Walk. And then what we had to do was kind of look at ways in which we can promote them to potential BPO interests or call center interests. And now that building is operational. So it's kind of that type of matchmaking that we want to do, which is why I mentioned that it crosses both local and foreign, because we're trying to see how we can get businesses in Belize to grow by partnering them with foreign investors or interests.
a thought expansion that has to take place. I think for some people who perhaps are already doing business or have the possibility of doing business. And sometimes we want to create something and we limit our capacity to what can be done in Belize. Or we have the dreams of going global without the pockets to do it. So this is kind of the ideal way to get to that place. One, to expand where you think your business can go, and also perhaps to reach that expansion if you don't have the money.
Right.
So your expo is kind of the center where you want people to come together and discuss or showcase.
Right. So it's really a call for projects.
Yeah.
Because like I said, we do have 12 investment projects since we launched the Belize Investment Portfolio in 2016, which what we're trying to do is to ramp up that portfolio.
Yeah.
Many other countries have done similar initiatives. You have Jamaica, Barbados, St. Lucia, some in the Caribbean that are doing the same. But the reason is to get local companies or entrepreneurs or anyone that is willing to have an investor at the table to come and submit a project and conceptualize, like we said, that idea of why do I need investment, what type of investment, and we can help with that, right? We have a form, we have the guidance that we can provide, but once they submit that, then Beltrade's job is we're mandated to promote for investment, right? So what we're going to do is take those projects and shop them to investors, like we did in the case of Digi and some others. Now, we have a lot of events coming up, especially Expo Dubai 2020, and that's of course with everything going on.
I was going to say, dependent on what COVID
Yes, exactly. But we have events that we do go to, so of course we have to monitor the situation right now. But alternatively, we do online promotion. So we do send it out to our interests. All persons that have expressed an interest to invest in Belize, we send them these projects, right? So online promotion and also face-to-face promotion at expos, right? So that's what we do.
Now, not all investment is good investment. And Belize is, I mean, it is considered a high-risk area. And usually risky investments means sometimes that you're giving up a lot. How do you, I mean, if you are mandated to bring in investment, it's important that you have people come to the table.
Right.
But what are your checks and balances for those for those people who are interested in investment? And secondly, how much do you work with even the local bodies or the local businesses to ensure that it's not an advantageous relationship, that they're not giving more than they need to of their own product or service or whatever it is they're selling?
Right. So essentially, like you said, that decision to select Belize is always one that we've had to provide a lot of information on.
Yeah.
When groups do site selection for investment, they would look at different macroeconomic data. They would look at the stability of an economy, the doing business indicators,
the ease of doing business,
right, which we have to of course improve on. But ultimately, there is a certain competitive advantage that we have in Belize, and we like to say, if an investor comes, it's not only because of all of these other factors, but it's because of some underlying factor that we've found, whether it be our human resources, whether it be our natural resources. So there have been different reasons.
Yeah.
Now, let's say in the case of a large-scale investment coming in, take for example maybe a cruise ship facility like Norwegian Cruise Line or one of the others. If we were to take that investment case, we try to look at ways in which we build local linkages. So foreign investment doesn't, like you said, there's good investment, but there's also bad. But when you think about how an investment can have trickle-down effects, that is one of the ways. Local SMEs, let's say I'm producing chocolate or rums or other products, can be featured at that investment. And so that's where you can integrate then local SMEs with a large-scale project like that, so that the stores would have Belizean products, you know, it's being featured there. So that's how we try to build those local linkages. And also, you mentioned how do we tie them to it? I think that's a critical question. There's nothing that really legislates it as yet in terms of, okay, you must source, let's say, all your materials from Belize, right? But or use labor, right? Well, the way that we do that is through our incentive programs. So when an investor comes through Beltrade and says, well, I want a fiscal incentive or a designated processing area, those incentives, those tax benefits, we can then hold them accountable and say, well, you need to hire minimum 85% Belizeans. And we do have that in our policy. And you need to source local materials. So whether they be wood, furniture, materials that we can get locally, or even different types of, like you said, raw materials that are here. Source them locally as much as possible. The question then comes back from the investor saying quality, you know, we want to cost, right? And so we have to maintain that balance. I think ultimately it affects their bottom line, but we have to look at it.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes we feel that people will be altruistic, but it's business.
Yes.
But that's why I asked the other question in terms of how much you work with local businesses to ensure that they're not taken advantage of. Let's say I have a special sauce that does well locally and somebody wants to invest. They see the potential in it. I'm not business minded, and I would just want to see my sauce on the shelves in Walmart, you know?
Right.
And someone comes to me with that proposal, but perhaps what they're asking of me is more than I should perhaps be offering. How do you work to strengthen the smaller businesses to be able to understand what's good for them and what may be too much?
Okay, so ultimately the private to private negotiation is something we don't control. What you sign on to, let's say that, you know, someone comes to the table from this initiative and says, well, I would like to invest in your pepper sauce company, Marlene, right? Let's say, for instance. Then you have to ensure that you have your intellectual property registered. You have to ensure that, you know, whatever products you're willing to share or ideas you're willing to share, you can share them. But also whatever you sign is okay. Now, at Beltrade, we wouldn't necessarily vet those agreements because that's between you and the investor, but we're here to help you to get that exposure.
Or understand.
Or understand that you need to register your intellectual property. Now, if you need to do that, we do have the Small Business Development Center that helps companies go through that process, right? So that's why Beltrade has, I like to call it 4 different tentacles, but we all work in unison with that. But with the investment side, we're trying to look at alternative modes of investment. So whether they be leases, whether joint ventures, you have different types of equity investment as well. You also have angel investment. We've heard a lot about that. Impact investment is also a trend. So we're monitoring these trends, and we're seeing that more and more investors are saying, well, if we tell them, right, come to Belize and invest in tourism or invest in a call center, they would say, well, you know, Hero, I would like to know where specifically, or who can I invest with? Maybe is there somebody locally that I could maybe partner with? So that's really the essence of this initiative. If you are willing, you can submit and we will feature you.
Okay.
I think, well, then I think that, you know, is a perfect segue into talking about the expo, what that's all about, and sort of what persons who are interested can sort of expect if they do want to participate.
Sure. So basically what they would do is you can attend the call for projects. It's going to be held on March 26th, so coming up very soon at the Best Western Biltmore at 2 p.m. So if you're interested, you can attend that event, and we're going to walk you through the process of how to submit your project. Now we'll give case examples like we did today, but of course in more detail. And we will show you how you can conceptualize that plan. So let's say I'll give another example of a recent case. So we may have like a small chocolate producer that's saying, you know, I really have a good chocolate product, but I want an investor to partner with me to grow my chocolate product and like you said, internationalize it, to export it. And so that willingness has to come, and we will share more information on how to apply. But essentially it's an online portal. You go in and you make that business case. And then once it's there, we promote it. And then the negotiations, of course, like I said, remain between you and whoever contacts you. Right.
So we're looking at 6 specific areas.
Yes.
And the level, coming to the call for proposals is really where I'm going to get all the details of how to put the proposal together, essentially.
Yes.
I just need to fit in these 6 categories.
Yeah, right.
And it can be anything from already having a small or medium business to having property that may be able to be leased.
Right, exactly. So A lot of times in Belize, you hear of people that have maybe really prime property that is just sitting there. You know, you're not doing anything with it, and you say, you know, let me feature it in the portfolio, and maybe I get an investor. Now, we've had cases where actually out of the 12 projects that are currently within the portfolio, we've had a resort that just said, I would like to sell my resort. And that is fine, because now whether we find you a buyer or not, again, that's really up to the investor's interest. But you are featured online, you are sent out in our newsletter, you are exposed in terms of, like, again, sending out to investors, right, at expos and different events. Now, if again that sale happens, then that's an investment deal. That's basically where we say, okay, that deal is sealed, right? So like you said, yes, Marlene, if you have land, if you have property, let's say a building that's not being used, if you're a small business that is open and willing to have an investor to the table, come to the event and learn more.
Okay, and so this is the 26th at the Biltmore in Belize City.
Yes.
Starting at
2 p.m.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you for coming in and telling us all about it. We hope that it's kind of piqued the interest of a few more people and they can go on out and see the opportunity.
Definitely. Thank you, Melanie and Gavin, for having us. Thank you.
All right. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we are going to be talking to the Light and Peace Basketball Foundation about an upcoming female basketball tournament and the Drew Joyce Classic. Stay tuned. into our final conversation for today. We are joined by two representatives of the Light and Peace Basketball Foundation. We have Roscoe Reese and Rupert Brown. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Gentlemen, it's been a while since we've had you here. We know that you work with children to be able to build some of the foundational skills for basketball, promoting them beyond Belize. Talk to us about what you've been up to.
Good morning, Belize. Well, basically what we've been up to is nothing strange. We've been up to pretty much the same thing, just working in the community with boys and girls developing basketball.
Yes.
So this time around, we kind of switched it up, and we're having a female basketball tournament.
I like the sound
we've
of that.
noticed now for many years, nobody has really invested much time into developing the girls. So, you know, myself and Coach Brown, we took it on ourselves, along with some of our friends in the States who sponsored these wonderful prizes. And we're having a female basketball tournament on Saturday, March the 14th at Swift's Hall, starting at 9:30 in the morning. And I didn't really know March was Women's Month. And when people started saying, hey, you guys are having a basketball tournament for girls in March, and I was like, yeah, did you know it was Women's Month? And I said, oh, it is.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a great initiative just to have the females play basketball. We know there are a lot of girls that play basketball at the sixth form level, at the high school level.
Yeah.
So we just put it together. So we have teams from Benke, teams from Cayo, teams from Belmopan, Belize City, Keycocker, Dangriga.
Nice.
Yes.
How many teams in total?
8 teams.
So what's been the reaction? So we've talked about this before, that you have in some of your training programs little girls who are involved from a very young age. You've also brought some great star players who are at high school level, but there just isn't a lot that takes place for them to play outside of primary school and high school competitions, right? That's kind of been the case for a while.
Yes, right.
So what's been the interest when you say you're going to do a female tournament?
Well, for me, it's basically having daughters, you know, and knowing that there isn't really anything for the females to do.
Yeah.
I personally know a lot of female basketball players, right? And they've always asked when we'll have a tournament, why don't we have a tournament? Because we all always include females in our training program.
Yeah.
You know, so when we have tournaments, it's usually just boys. The last time we had our U14 tournament, we had some girls playing along with the boys.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not what we really want to do. So we're trying to now move forward into having something consistent and annually for the girls to partake in.
Why doesn't the mixed tournament work?
I guess because it's just boys playing against
The boys
girls.
prefer to pick boys and get girls
boys
on their
are just
team?
too physical.
Boys are too physical.
They're more physical. They're more aggressive, and the style of play
Yeah.
is not really. It's not something you would want to put your daughter in. You know.
What's the difference between what you see when girls play versus boys play?
Well, I see structure with the girls more than with the boys, because the boys like showboating, like a lot of fancy plays and a lot of fancy moves. Because they're actually more athletic than girls, they tend to want to do more stuff, while the girls just stick to the basics. You know, they just score the basketball, play good defense, work as a team. It's easier to deal with the girls than it is with the boys for me, because the girls would listen more, knowing
They're more
that
team oriented too, right?
they listen more because of the fact that they're not athletically gifted, that they could just do whatever they want to do.
I don't know if they're not athletically gifted. That'll be a
No,
different story.
in terms of, I'm talking about
We don't
being
push
able
them
to jump
into
as
being
high,
athletic.
being able to run as
Just
fast, being able to do
Purely physical.
physicality. You know,
Yeah. Okay.
And it's not that they're not skilled or they're not gifted.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's just that with the boys, the level is amped up a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know.
And a part of that is that we don't push girls in sports. You know, it's kind of like you do it, you like it, but we don't really push them. And this is a great opportunity for them to show their skill sets. What's You have 8 teams from across the country coming to the competition. You said you have some partners that you're working with. These are some great looking trophies you have here.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
Well, it's just basically some of our friends. Kashif Thomas came out of the program. He lives in Atlanta, Georgia. Between him and our friend in California, Conquer in Lyon, they sponsored $1,000 cash prize for the winning team. So the first place team gets $1,000. And also Conquer and Lion sponsored all of these trophies. So we got the MVP trophy. One female is going to walk away with this MVP trophy. We have the team trophy. So the winner is going to get this team trophy with $1,000. And then you have a best point guard and a best defensive player.
Yeah.
And then also Mr. Bernard Wagner and the City Council, they sponsored the medals. So each team is going to get 12 first place medals for first and 12 second place medals.
What age group are we looking at?
This is open. This is open.
Oh.
So we're gonna have some university girls playing, some women playing as well.
Yeah.
So it's more. It's not really more for the little
Kids,
girls.
yeah.
It's more for
the older
high
ones,
school and
high school,
seniors,
junior college, and adults.
And you know, in terms of the support that you guys actually have received, how was the, you know, what was the level of interest and support when you brought it?
The moment I reached out to some female players, they got excited. Yo, we're bringing our team, and then we ended up actually having more people showing interest, but we had already set our format and our criteria for 8 teams. So we told them that, you know, it's something that we're going to be doing annually and more regularly. So what we'll do is on the next tournament, we'll probably open it up to maybe about 10 to 12 teams, and maybe turn it into like a 2 or 3 day event rather than a 1 day event.
That's so good to know. This is such a great initiative coming out from you guys. I think we need to be able, it's interesting because with Kobe's passing, everybody was recognizing, you know, that proud girl dad, and what we heard from his story was so much of his dedication in pushing his daughter and supporting her in basketball. So I think it's just timely when we're talking about having girls in sports that we've just recently had that discussion as well. Do you encourage your daughters to play basketball? Do they play?
Well, not right now. Not right now, because I use myself as a perfect example. I mean, my parents didn't really push me. They just encouraged me in whatever I liked. So my daughter is interested in volleyball right now. So,
that's a hot sport right now.
You know, so we're pushing that. But I know as they grow and get older, usually girls play basketball in high school. That's what I've been noticing, because the primary school level, there's nobody teaching them the game. So even if they're forced to join the team, or they like basketball so they want to join the team, they're not being taught the basics. So they go to the game and the games end at 1-0 or 2-3-0 or something like that. It's really ridiculous.
So it means we have to focus in primary school too, and have them, because you do have the boys team for primary school basketball.
Yes.
Okay.
But we tend to leave our girls out for some reason. And if you really check stats and find out nationwide, worldwide, girls usually stop playing sports at a younger age than boys. Right? And that's because of the lack of encouragement, the lack of, you know, motivation.
But even tournaments.
Yes,
like
things for them to do.
So that's why this is such a great initiative. It doesn't matter that we're just starting, but we're starting.
Yes, you gotta start
and it doesn't matter that it's not the little ones, the older ones get an opportunity, and we can only grow from here.
But you're going to definitely see some high school players playing with the older girls as well. So, you know.
And imagine the primary schoolers who like basketball coming out and watch and realizing this is something they can take advantage of.
Oh, definitely. We want to encourage them because they're the foundation, you know. This tournament is set for high school and seniors, but we really want to work with the primary school kids, because if we get a chance to work with them on their fundamentals, by the time they get to high school and older, we would probably be able to have a league for them, because we would have competitive games, interesting, you know. So this is just a direction we're trying to take the girls basketball, you know, whereby we have the girls getting better, working on their basics, and on each level, the actual game entertaining and it's fun, and they know how to play. It's not ending at a 4-0 or, you know.
But you know what's interesting, and I think I've always learned with you guys, it's basketball is great as a skill to have, but it can also be your door to the future. You guys have helped people get scholarships and be selected for international teams. You know, one of the interesting things I remember finding out, Dr. Pitts, who is from the City Council, she went away on a basketball scholarship. So women can also get basketball scholarships as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's what you're hoping for?
That's the idea. That's what we're pushing towards, because here in Belize they're limited, you know, in terms of, we have Galen and a couple of schools offering scholarships. I haven't heard or seen them give a girl a scholarship.
True.
You know, but that's the direction we want to take it. We want to encourage them to give a girl a scholarship. We have young talented girls right now at high school that would appreciate a scholarship to sixth form.
Yeah.
You know.
Great job. So it's this Saturday.
Yes, this Saturday, 9:30 in the morning. We go all day. We're playing 7 games. It's a single elimination tournament, so you got to win to stay in. You lose, you're out. But that's just the way tournaments go sometimes. So, you know, we give thanks for all the support. Is there a charge to
enter?
No, we're not charging nothing, because one, we didn't really want to do this to make it seem like we're trying to make money off the sport. It's more of giving back to the community and just having an event that people could just come out and support. What we do want to do though for the foundation is we'll just have like a donation 5-gallon bottle, and if you want to drop $1 or $2 in there that goes towards the foundation, then you could support the foundation, because through the foundation is how we do events and give back to the community and just teach the game of basketball. You know, myself and Coach Brown, you know, give thanks to the Creator for life. But we have been now USA basketball certified coaches for 3 years. It wasn't easy.
Which isn't an easy certification. I do have to say that much, you guys. It's like school.
Yes, it is school.
Yeah.
It is.
But the beauty about it is when you're finished your certification, the amount of material that comes with it, the information, all the clinics, you're invited to USA basketball clinics throughout the year.
Yeah.
You network with coaches, you meet basketball personnel. So to me, it's just the right way to go. And we're just trying to move up. We're just trying to move up. Everything is just moving up right now. And like I said, we give thanks for life and the health and strength to be able to do what we do.
From the start, this has been our main objective, to educate ourselves so that we could better, you know, prepare our youth. Belize has a lot of opportunity. We have a lot of talent, but we're not, you know, guiding these talent and steering them the right way. You know, we lose a lot of kids to violence and a lot of kids to craziness on the street, gang violence. You know, a lot of stuff that's going wrong is because we're not providing opportunities for these kids to really get out of that situation that they're in. You know, and we know the condition Belize as a country is in.
Yeah.
So why aren't our leaders putting more interest in bettering our future, our youth? You know, I mean, it's something that they could think about. There's a lot of programs like ours targeting
you still have your
youth.
training programs on Saturday?
Well, no, we don't. We don't have the Bulldogs program again. But we do have Light and
So
Peace.
you're
So
planning
right now,
tournaments.
we're planning tournaments. We're still active with players, and then right now, just through the Drew Joyce Classic opportunity, we've been working out since January, and we have put together like a junior national team with boys from Orange Walk, Dan Griga, Belmopan, Cayo, Belize City. We invited PG, we invited Curacao, but nobody really showed up from there to take the challenge.
Yeah.
So
the Drew Joyce Classic is happening this year?
Yes, the Drew Joyce Classic happens every year, and this is the 3rd year that Light and Peace has embarked on taking a team to the Drew Joyce Classic. We're pretty good friends with LeBron's high school coach, Drew Joyce. We contact him all the time through email, phone calls. When we decided to do it 2 years ago, he was all for it. He was the one who actually guided me and Coach Brown to how to do our USA basketball certification. And he told us, you know, once you guys do this, you guys are in. He invites us, we just have to reach. He doesn't charge us to play in his tournament. To play in an AAU tournament costs $550 US just to sign up your team. So he waives that fee. All we got to do is reach. And they provide us with good hotel and, you know.
So you have a 12-man team that's going?
Yes. Right now we have 20 players. We're cutting it down to 12. We've been working out since January with about 30 to 35 boys have been sacrificing, coming to Belize City on the weekends. We practice on Saturdays and we practice on Sundays.
And as a refresher for our audience, actually, we've had quite a few boys recruited through this tournament.
Oh yes,
yes, definitely.
From high school age.
Yes,
Yeah.
the Drew Joyce Classic and a lot of AAU tournaments around the United States are geared at providing young student athletes with the opportunity to get scouted. So when you go to these tournaments, you're going to see college coaches all around the venue just watching, just watching. So you never know who's watching, and you just got to be ready, have the right attitude, be coachable, be a team player, everything positive about the game. Because we got a lot of bad habits in Belize that we're trying to break when it comes to the sport. And what we have learned that this basketball right here could take you far in life. Not only saying to get to the NBA, but it could get you an education that's going to last for the rest of your life. You can get a job, you're going to be successful in the community.
It'll last longer than your athletic ability.
That's what we stress most to our participants, right? That you could actually better your life through the game of basketball. Whenever we get an opportunity to work with these kids, we're embarking on preparing them for life, giving them life skills through basketball. Right? Because with basketball, there's so much you could learn. You could learn leadership, teamwork, how to communicate, how to be a good friend, There's a lot of things that basketball helps you with outside of the game, right? And you learn it through the game. So this is a wonderful opportunity for our youth from Belize to get an opportunity to go better their lives, right? And it's not being offered locally, so we try our best to try to, get them out. It's right now it's a frightening situation with this coronavirus going all over the place, and we're not really sure of how everything is going to pan out by the end of the month.
Yeah.
But last night I was looking at the TV and they locked out the NBA.
Yeah.
Right, so that was a wake-up call for us. We got on the phone right away and we were talking like, do you think what's gonna happen? And we were just throwing ideas out like what's
So you're
possible.
planning on it. I mean, if they move it or
the last word that we got from Coach Drew yesterday was that they're still on schedule. Everything's gonna happen, but then the lockout for the NBA didn't happen till last night. So when we contact them today and through the rest of the week, we'll find out what's the final.
Maybe that means some of the NBA players can go watch. Since they're not working.
Well, the good thing this year,
right?
the Drew Joyce Classic is they partner with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So because we registered our team before March 24th, we get Cavs tickets, but there's no NBA. So.
But nonetheless, we do hope it works out. There's a lot of uncertainty with public events like that, but we do hope that it works out. And in the meantime, people can support your cause when they go to the female tournament this weekend. That's going to be at 9 a.m.
9:30
at Swift Hall in Belize City.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in and keeping us updated.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Belize.
Thank you guys for having us again.
We're going to go ahead and take that final break now, and when we come back, we'll have a wrap-up, so stay tuned.
With over 100 years of
Signing up for Smart's broadband got
And we're back.
Wrapping up today's show again, we had a bunch of interesting conversations.
Yeah.
Of course, the first conversation we had was about with the Belize Peace Movement about the redistricting case that's currently before the Supreme Court. It is a case that deals with issues of national importance, so it was nice to get an update on that and to see where we are and what we can expect. So it was a very interesting conversation.
And get some clarity as to what their point of view is. Of course, this is before the courts. We don't know where this is going to go. It continues tomorrow, they said?
Yes.
In the court. So we'll keep you updated, of course, in our nightly newscast.
Yep. And secondly, we also want to thank Hero Balani from Beltrade who came in to talk about the investment expo that is coming up in Dubai and the event that is being held this week, where if you're interested in being featured in Beltrade's presentation or on their website, there is going to be an event this Friday. And so we want to thank him for coming in to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, big thank you to Light and Peace Basketball Foundation. They're having an all-girls tournament this weekend, technically a women's tournament because it's the older players. It's going to be this Saturday in Belize City at Swift Hall. Great opportunity to check out our female talent in basketball. They're going to have teams from all over the country, so it's going to be quite a diverse group that will be playing. We really encourage you to go on out and show your support. And, you know, always they'll be also looking for donations at that time. They're taking a team of players to the Drew Joyce Classic, and that is an opportunity for them to be able to showcase their talents, possibly be scouted, and keep us on the map when it comes to basketball.
Yeah, for sure. So, and we like to thank them again for coming to check in, telling us all about the female tournament and the Drew Joyce Classic. It's always nice to see when these initiatives are starting, especially like empowering girls in sports.
Oh,
you know?
yeah, absolutely. So do show your support. But that's all the time we have for today. We do want to let you know, of course, that in terms of an update with COVID-19, the Prime Minister is having a press conference today, so you can look out for that this afternoon. We'll find out what he has to say about what is now the recently declared pandemic of COVID-19, and you'll have the latest update in our newscast tonight, so do tune in. But in the meantime, if you want to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. Drop me a line at marlene_oye@channel5belize.com. Find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ.
And on Instagram at OAE Belize.
And remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
And start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your heart open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.